Okay, good morning, Boker Tov to everybody. We're in Parashat Tetzei, and the Midrash, the Midrash in Sefer Dvarim is very minor, secondary. We have many mitzvot, and even though we don't see many midrashim about it, we might think that because it's Sefer Mitzvot, we have less Divrei Agada, and if we add the fact that we always find Divrei Halacha in the Midrash Rabbah of Sefer Dvarim, so we don't have much. So the beginning of Parashat Ki Tetzei is actually from Ki Karei Kad Tzipor Lefanecha, which is about to the end of the parasha or in the middle. We don't have anything about the Milchama, about Ben Sorer Umoreh. None of those above mentioned parashiyot have a midrash relating to it. So we'll start from the famous Ki Karei Kad Tzipor, and the midrash surprisingly starts with a different aspect. So הלכה, כי קרא כאן ציפור לפניך, הלכה, תינוק שנולד כשהוא מהול, מהו שיהיה מותר למול אותו? Okay, so we have several cases in which we don't need the מילה. According to many midrashim, דוד המלך, אברהם אבינו, no, not אברהם אבינו, דוד המלך, משה רבינו, several of our sages were born circumcised, and it's a question whether you have the technical problem or maybe is too complete. Nolad Shalem, he was born Shalem without the need to remove the Orla. So we know that now we have a atafat dam brit. It's called you take some drops of blood, and that symbolizes, that's the fulfillment of the mitzvah. That's what we do if we have a milah that wasn't done properly or wasn't done לשם מילה. Let's say that he was overtaking gerut reformit or something like this. So we make another מילה, but since we cannot do that, we do atafat דם ברית. So תינוק שנולד כשהוא מהול, the question is not whether you can do atafat דם ברית, או אלא מהו שבכלל יהיה מותר למול אותו. So כך שנו חכמים, תינוק שנולד מהול צריך להטיף ממנו דם ברית מפני בריתו של אברהם. So we know that the Midrash answers two questions. First of all, it's yes, it's permitted to circumcise it, and secondly, you do say צריך להטיף ממנו דם ברית מפני בריתו של אברהם. זאת אומרת, בריתו של אברהם requires you, in most cases, a normal ברית מילה, and in several cases the atafat dam brit as a substitute. ומניין תלמד מן התורה שנאמר הימול ימול יליד ביתך ומקנת כספך. So it doesn't matter who, everybody should undertake the מילה. Actually it's not a big raya because the same thing happens with it's written explicitly ולקחתם לכם ביום הראשון פרי עץ הדר כפות תמרים וענף עץ אבות וערבי נחל. So we should do that in לקיחת לולב, and sometimes if we have problems in לקיחת לולב, so either that we have a substitute or that we don't have. But the Torah says לכתחילה ימול ימול יליד ביתך ומקנת כספך. The Torah doesn't relate to the case that it requires each and everybody. But I think that the raya is from himol himol, the repetition of the word lamol of the tzibur means that in any case you should be mal. So how can you be mal? By atafat dam brit. The midrash here doesn't explain how we learned from that, but that's probably what Chazal understood, that it's a best substitute to mitzvat milah. דבר אחר, ימול ימול. Yeah, so you see the repetition. אל תהי קורא בו, אלא שתי מילות, מילה ופריאה. So we know that in an ordinary מילה, we have three parts, two of them from the midrash we can learn now, מילה and פריאה, the removing up of the orla, and we have a מציצה, which is a sucking of the blood, which is secondary. It's not the same main thing. Otherwise, we do need it in each milah. We do the three steps. So milah and priya are from the pasuk. It seems that milah and priya are both deoraita. רב לוי אמר, ימול, מכאן למוהל צריך שיהיה מהול. That's very nice. So the mohel couldn't be a goy. He must be a Jewish, because it's mamash like the Gemara in Kiddushin, the Lamed, that talks about ולימדתם אותם את בניכם. So the Gemara talks about the chiyuv to teach Torah, and the Gemara says that somebody that learns from others have the chiyuv to teach others. Meaning that if I learn from my parents, I have to teach my kids. So the same thing.
A woman can be mal.
Okay, so a woman can be mal. It's okay. From this midrash, you cannot say anything. You can say that a woman is considered circumcised. Okay, not that she doesn't need the milah, but she's born circumcised, keilu. Okay. That's there is a Tosfot saying like this, that it doesn't disturb a woman from being moil. As we know the second milah that we have in the, not second, third milah that we have in the Torah after Avraham and Yitzchak is Moshe Rabbeinu's son, and it's Tzipora. So yeah, it doesn't disturb apparently. Okay, either
maybe a woman is considered mahul. Maybe she should need hatofas dam bris.
Okay. Yeah, okay. The Midrash doesn't relate to it. Okay, so either the Midrash says that a woman cannot be moel, and we know that we don't take a woman if we have a man, and or that the Midrash thinks like the halacha that she can be a moel, and then without atafat b'dam brit somehow, okay, because we haven't found it. אמר רבי יהודה בן פזי, מה כתיב בציפורה אשת משה? אז אמרה חתם דמים למולות, למילה אין כתיב כאן אלא למולות, שתי מילות, מכאן למילה ומכאן לפרייה. So according to רבי יהודה בן פזי, we don't need the ימול, the ציווי itself, but the סיפור דברים of the Torah in פרשת שמות encompasses the two parts of the מילה. ולמה שהתינוק נולד לשמונה ימים? So here is a big question. Every drasha in Brit Milah or Shalom Zocher talks about it. Why did the Torah choose 8 days? So we know the famous Maharal with the 8 days. It symbolizes the Olam Haba, because this world is limited by 7 days in the week, 7 years in Shemitah, 7 Shemitot in Yovel, etc. And the 8th symbolizes בעצם the new ספירה. As we have, according to the Greeks, we count to 10. So from 0 to 9, we have one set, and 10 is a repetition. It's 1 with 0. Okay, so it's a repetition. So according to the Greeks, we have 7. According to the Greeks, we have 10, and another counting of Chazal, the Greeks had it as well, is 7. We count to 7, and then from the 8th we start a new circle. As the Midrash says something different, שנאמר ולמה התינוק נולד ל8 ימים? שנתן הקדוש ברוך הוא רחמים עליו עד שיהיה בו כוחו, וכשם שרחמיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא על האדם, כך רחמיו על הבהמה, שנאמר שור או כסף או עז כי ייוולד, והיה 7 ימים תחת אמו, ומיום השמיני והלאה ירצה לקורבן של השם. So in human being we usually think that is considered a month, that he doesn't have power, and then if chas v'shalom he dies, so we say that it was just he didn't have the power, it's not mamash nefesh. But in Behema, we see it like 7 days that the Behema, which is born, it doesn't have its power. And after 7 days, it's an authority, it's an entity, and then we can be makriv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same thing happens with human being as well. Even though the till a month is not chazak, he's not strong, it doesn't have his koach, but he somehow has a different unit of koach. We find it many times, the structure of 7 and 30. I just learned yesterday a Mishnah in Nazir. So there is Shitat Rabbi Eliezer there in Perek Gimel, the Mishnah Nazir, that says that sometimes if you say Ani Nazir, so we know that Stam Nazirut is for 30 days. But if you say Ani Nazir 30 Yom, so then you have to do full 30 Yom, not even Miktzat Hayom Kekulo. Okay. And then Rabbi Eliezer says there is something that if in several cases, twice in the Mishnah there in Nazir, he says that if you don't fulfill the whole Nazirut, you have to fulfill at least 7 days. So why 7 days? We see that according to Chazal, the year, the structure, I don't know, the system is based on 7:30 a year. We see it in Avelis. We have 7 days of Avelus, and then we have 30 days for the honorary person, and the year for mother and father. We see it in Leavdil, in Simcha, Shivat Yemei HaMishteh, and we see 30 days that a Kala in the Mishnah, in Yoma, Shelot Titgane al Ba'ala, can be Roichetz, even in Yom Kippurim, and we see a year, Shana, נקי יהיה לביתו, yes, it's actually פרשת שבוע, כי ייקח איש אישה חדשה, נקי יהיה לביתו, ושימח את אשתו a year. So we see the same thing here as well, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have 7 days, that after 7 days from the birth, it has some power, and here it's mamash physical, because the tfisa of Chazal is that after 7 days, the baby has somehow some power, and after 30 days, it's mamash bria, it's a structure, it's a entity, and then is yatsa michlal nefil. Okay, so we see the same thing. Here you see the tam la mitzvot that the Midrash gives, and the tam is very simple. Till 7 days, we are afraid of the baby. Okay, from 8th day, we can trust the power of the baby to undertake the milah without chas v'shalom dying out of it. Okay. שנאמר, ולא עוד, אלא שאמר הקדוש ברוך הוא אותו ועוד בנו לא תשחטו ביום אחד, וכשם שנתן הקדוש ברוך הוא רחמים על בהמה, כך נתמלא רחמים על העופות. So now, if you asked me, why do we start from כי יקרא כאן ציפור לפניך? So we know that כי יקרא כאן ציפור לפניך is the most famous source to טעם למצוות. We have the סתירה in the Rambam. The Rambam in one place writes that there isn't Ta'am LeMitzvot, and we shouldn't look for the Ta'am LeMitzvot. And by explaining the Mishnah in Brachot, it says that Kol HaOmer Al Kan Tzipor Yagiu Rachamecha Meshatkin Oto. So the Gemara has 2 reasons why it's bad to say such a thing, because Kadosh Baruch Hu takes pity on a bird. Why is it a bad thing to say? So one shita in the Gemara is that he differentiates between the creatures of Kadosh Baruch Hu. He says that the Kadosh Baruch Hu takes care or takes pity just on a creature, on a tzipor, not on a lamb, let's say, and on the other reason in the Gemara is that הוא עושה את המצוות של הקדוש ברוך הוא logical ואינן אלא גזרות. Everything הקדוש ברוך הוא said, it's just like גזרה, just something you have to live with, not to understand. And then the Rambam explains that in one source he says that there isn't a Ta'am LeMitzvot and we shouldn't look for it. In other sources he says yes, we should strive to understand the Ta'am LeMitzvot, etc. and everything. And here the Midrash itself, on which the Rambam is based, goes to the Tamle Mitzvot and explains that not only the Mila is based on a natural issue that till 7 days it's mamash, we're afraid that the boy will not be alive, but even with Behema we have the same thing because HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes pity on the birds. Minayin שנאמר כי יקרא כאן ציפור לפניך. And that's a linkage to all we have seen. The Midrash started from Milah but came back to ציפור. Now,
can I ask something on this? Everybody talks about the Rachmim on the Tzipor as being the part of the essence of the principle. I see it as the exact opposite. It's cruelty to the bird. How could you do a thing like that to a mother and child? To separate them, to kill one of them? Why just leave them alone? You're not even interested in them. You're going keep correct. You just happen to see them. Why not just leave them alone? And the reason is the exact opposite, is to teach you achzoriyut. Hashem said, I say do certain things, and it may look achzoriyut, but do it.
Okay, so your question is based on there is a siman in your idea, I think Shin Kaf Hey, that deal Shin Tzadik Bet or Gimel, okay, dealing with Shiluach HaKen, and there is a big machloket between the Zohar and I don't remember who, the Chatam Sofer, no, Rabbi Yehuda, one of the main Achronim, whether you should do Shiluach HaKen in any case. As you said, it's not the common halachic way that even if I'm not interested in the eggs, I should do the Shiluach HaKen. I think that the Zohar says that because he symbolizes Shiluach HaKen as the taking pity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on us, on Am Yisrael, and we symbolize it. So even if we're not interested in the eggs, we do it. In a second I'll explain why it's Rachmanut from the perspective of Chazal. But according to the main halachic people, you should do the whole mitzvah just if you're interested in eggs. So I don't say that it solves the whole problem, but it softens it, because you don't come to a bird and meshaleach. If you want to take, so then the Torah says don't do it in front of the mother. So from this perspective, of course, we can understand that if you don't see, it's much better that if you do it in front of your face. So but I understand, I understand that it's nice your interpretation, that you look from the other way, that you say that it's mamash achzariyut, and the Torah somehow teaches us to zegzerot, and maybe according to your explanation, we can understand why Shiluach HaKen is such a tzomet drachim, a crossroad between the te'amei mitzvot and gzerot. Because the one that explains it like Chazal will explain it that it's Rachamim, it's very nice, it's all full of Tamei Mitzvot. The one who will explain it like you, that it's on the contrary, saying no, you should do it just because I've ordered, would explain it that it comes might symbolize that you do it just because I have said, even if you don't think it's nice, if you think it's right, etc. Okay, but again, it's not muskam that you should do it normally. If you find a can in your balcony, and you're not interested in the eggs, like most of us, so it's not agreed upon everybody that you should do it. Let's go further. מה זה?
זה לא בדרך.
Right, that's lo baderech as well, but if it's in your balcony, according to the people who say that you should do it anyway, you should do it. I don't remember why. You're right that the Gemara in Chulin, at the end of Chulin, lomedet something from the baderech, and I don't remember how the Shulchan Aruch explains it, but somehow, yes, if you find it in your window, you should do that.
And if I find it in my neighbor's window, I don't do it.
Right. So I don't remember the Agdara. I have to look up in the loch there. but it's not ממש בדרך, כן? זה גמרא says בדרך פרט ל... I don't remember what, but not, it's not mamash that if you go in the street, because then it will be mamash mitzvah nedira. We know that it's a rare mitzvah, but I've never found a bird on the way, but I have found once a bird in a nest or something in the window, so I have to look up, I don't remember. ב' זהו שאמר הכתוב, אורח חיים פן תפלס, נעו מעגלותיה לא תדע. So the Mishlei says, how can I translate it? It's very difficult pasuk to translate. Orach, I'll start from the na'u ma'agelotea. So the life has its own way of streaming, and you'll never know how it goes or something like this. So don't try to calculate or to think that you understand the way of life, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do it in any case. That's one interpretation. מהו אורח חיים פן תפלס? אמר רבי אבא בר כהנא, אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא. So, as I understood, it's about life, but the Midrash understands about the Torah, חיים, אורח חיים, כן, what is אורח חיים, a part of Shulchan Aruch, meaning the life, the Torah. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, לא תהיה יושב ומשקל במצוותיה של תורה. You shouldn't weigh the מצוות of the תורה. כעניין שנאמר, ושקל בפרס הרים. So in ישעיה מ', one of the הפטרות, ושקל בפלס, meaning to take a פלס, to take a כלי, that you weigh it, you measure it. לא תהיה אומר, הואיל והמצווה הזו גדולה, אני עושה אותה ששכרה מרובה. והואיל וזו מצווה קלה, איני עושה אותה. So one person can think that he has a right to choose whether he wants to do several mitzvahs, he doesn't want to do several mitzvahs. So no, you shouldn't do that. מה עשה הקדוש ברוך הוא? לא גילה לבריות מהו מתן שכרה של כל מצווה ומצווה, כדי שיעשו את כל המצוות בתום. הקדוש ברוך הוא didn't tell us the wage of each mitzvah, in order that all the mitzvot will be fulfilled naively, naturally. מניין שנאמר, נעו מעגלותיה לא תדע. So as you throw a stone in a river, in a spring, and you see, the circles, and you never know till where the circles go, we know that your circles can affect the fish in 10 meters and even more. So the same thing happens with mitzvot. Sometimes you think it's just a minor mitzvah, and when you come to fulfill it, you are mezalzel in it. But no, now ma'agelotea lo teda, you never know which how far the circles go. למה הדבר דומה? למלך ששכר לו פועלים והכניס אותם לתוך פרדסו, סתם ולא גילה להם מהו שכרו של פרדס. So you hire some workers, you don't tell them what the hire is. שלא יניחו דבר ששכרו מועט וילכו ויעשו דבר ששכרו מרובה. בערב קרא לכל אחד ואחד. So they don't know what to choose, because they don't know what to do. It's not a שכיר יום. It's a שכר. Sometimes if you cut תאנים, it's more, and sometimes if you cut pomegranates, it's less. You don't know. So בערב קרא לכל אחד ואחד. At night he calls everybody. אמר לו, תחת איזה אילן עשית? אמר לי, תחת זה. אמר לו, פלפל הוא. Yes, it's pepper. שכרו זהוב אחד. קרא לאחר, אמר לו, תחת איזה אילן עשית? אמר לו, תחת זה. אמר לו, שכרו חצי זהוב. So we have a different price to the same work. קרא לאחר, אמר לו, תחת איזה זה, אמר לו, תחת זה, אמר לו, זית הוא שכרו 200 זוז. אמר לו, לא היית צריך להודיע אותנו איזה אילן שכרו מרובה כדי שנעשה תחתיו? You should have told us before. Then everybody would go to the olive tree and do it, because that's the best thing. אמר לה המלך, אילו הודעתי, איך היה כל פרדסי נעשה. I want work to be done. And every time that I read a mashal of the midrash, it's not 21st century. It doesn't fit, because nowadays you take workers and you say you get 1,000, you get 500, they'll tell you a discrimination, what go to court with you. So the midrash is not updated, but it's very clear. Okay, so אמר להם המלך, אילו הודעתי איך היה כל פרדסי נעשה. So here you see that הקדוש ברוך הוא כאילו, and it's clear, it's not a big חידוש, but I just stress out that הקדוש ברוך הוא is interested in 613 מצוות to be done all together, and כך לא קילה הקדוש ברוך הוא מתן שכרן של מצוות חוץ משתי מצוות, החמורה שבחמורות והקלה שבקלות. So הקדוש ברוך הוא wanted all the mitzvahs to be done. What did he reveal? כיבוד אב ואם, חמורה שבחמורות, ומתן שכרה אריכות ימים, שנאמר כבד את אביך ואת אמך and explicitly למען יאריכון ימיך, והקלה שילוח הקן. Okay, so why כיבוד אב ואם is so חמורה? Because we know from the Gemara in Kiddushin, the famous story about Rabbi Tarfon, that his mother went on his back, and one Amora, that his mother shouted at him and screamed at him in front of all the Bet Midrash, and it's a part of Kibudem not to answer. So that's Chamora שבחמורות. And קלה זה שילוח הקן, ומהו שכרה? אריכות ימים, שנאמר שלח את האם ואת הציפור תיקח לך למען יאריכון ימים וארכת ימים. הווי אומר כי יקרא כאן ציפור לפניך. Again, one thing to remember is that we have the separation in the mitzvahs between 611 and 2. We have it at least twice that I remember. Once in the 2 mitzvot anochi velo yelecha that are said by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. We know that there is a big machloket between Arishonim. What out of the 10 commandments were delivered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself? One says just the 2 mitzvot, one says all the 10, and then Am Yisrael was afraid and retired, and told Moshe, דבר איתנו ונמות ואל ידבר עמנו ונמות. So according to the minimum of the minimum, it's just 2 mitzvot, and we see that separation between 2 and 611, and the same thing happens here differently between the 2 explained and the rest. Let's go and do another one, and with this we'll finish. Yeah. זה שאמר הכתוב כי לוויית חן הם לראשך. So all the mitzvot are like לוויית חן. It's like a wreath, like a crown. Wreath, you call it? W-R-E-A-T-H? Wreath or wreath? Wreath. Okay, so it's like an ornament, a crown, something מקשט. Yes? רבונן אמרי, נעשה דברי תורה, כן לרשיותיך. So what's the explanation? כיצד? אדם בן תורה, בשעה שהוא מזקין, הכל באים ומסובבים אותו ושואלים אותו דברי תורה. So usually if you retire, let's say in computers, you're very good at work, but after today nowadays they say that at 40s they fire you and they need somebody younger that knows. They don't come to you. You have a lot of yeda, but even if it's not a matter of yeda, they don't come to an old person. Just if in מדעי הרוח, philosophy, in sociology, psychology, maybe then you ask a person who is older. But in מדעים מדויקים, in math, there is no יתרון to the old person. So in דברי תורה, yes, בשעה שהוא מזקין, when he gets older, everybody comes and gathers around him. So the Torah is לוויית חנם לראשך. When you get older, when the Rosh, why is ראשך? I think that the Rosh symbolizes zikna, because when you turn white, everybody sees that you are old. And even though in דברי תורה they come to you. דבר אחר, why is it a wreath? מהו כלוויית חן? אמר רב פנחס בר חמא, לכל מקום שתלך, המצוות מלוות אותך. So sometimes we feel the burden of the mitzvot, that in any case, in wherever we go, we have as the halacha tells us what to do. But the Midrash here sees it positively. כי תבנה בית חדש ועשית מעקה לגגיך. אם עשית דלת, אוקיי, so you have to do מעקה, you have to do a railing. אם עשית לך דלת, once you built a house with a door, so you have the מזוזה. המצוות מלוות אותך שנאמר, וכתבתם למזוזות ביתך. לבשת כלים חדשים, you have new clothes, לא תלבש שעטנז. הלכת לגלח, you go to the barber, or to make a haircut, המצוות מלוות אותך שנאמר לא תקיפו פאת ראשיכם. אם אין לך שדה, so you go to work, what can you do in the era of the midrash, just to go to the field, והלכת לחרוש, you go to plow, to harvest, so המצוות מלוות אותך שנאמר לא תחרוש בשור וחמור יחדיו. אם זרעת אותה, המצוות מלוות אותך שנאמר לא תזרע כרמך כליים. קצרת, המצוות מלוות אותך שנאמר כי תקצור צריכה בשדה, you have לקט, שכחה או פאה. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, אפילו לא היית עוסק בדבר אלא מהלך בדרך, המצוות מלוות אותך מניין שנאמר כי יקרא כאן ציפור לפניך. And that's yes, the pshat of the pasuk as you mentioned, that כי יקרא כאן ציפור לפניך בדרך. So you have even if you do something in the middle of the day, we know that there is a drasha, the divrei Torah, even if you're בלכתך בדרך you have to do it, but that's drash. Here you see that the midrash is mamash based on לכתך בדרך. הקדוש ברוך הוא gave you a way to get a prize even if you are in the derech. And what's the relation between בדרך of Amalek in das parasha and בדרך of the כאן ציפור? I'll let you think for the next week. שבוע טוב. בשורות טובות.
תודה רבה.
להתראות.